just for those who don't know me, I'm the only remaining member of the Wolfgang family now. We were originally 4 siblings. My older brother, Michael, my sister, Molly, myself, I was the 3rd child, and the 4th child was Jerry. Now, it's very interesting that Jerry wasn't born with the name Jerry. My father, Isidore Sobergeld, was killed in a holdup at the liquor store that he owned on East Fall Street in Niagara Falls. My father worked for my grandfather, Hyman Sobergeld, who had a junkyard on 13th, Lower 13th Street in Niagara Falls. And when Prohibition ended, he opened one of the first liquor licenses in Niagara County in the city of Niagara Falls. And he was on his way up to the store to check on it during lunch and walked into the store and was killed. My mother at the time was pregnant 6 months with Jerry. When the baby was born, the baby was named Isidore Sobergeld to commemorate my father who had been killed. Now, 5 years later, Jerry was in kindergarten at 10th Street School, and he would not respond to the kindergarten teacher or later to the 1st grade teacher. So they called his name and he would not answer to it. And they finally agreed that they would call him Jerry, and that was listed in the school records from then on all the way through high school. But it wasn't a legal thing at all. Jerry's legal name still was Isidore. My mother couldn't bear to call him Isidore, so she called him Junior. And that's the name everybody stuck with, calling him Junior. There are only 2 people that I remember still at his adult age called him Junior. One was, first name was Barbara, and the other name was Julie from the Jaffe family. And so we knew him as Junior for such a long time. When I was going to graduate from college at Niagara University, where I had a full tuition scholarship and a Regents scholarship to go there, I did not want to graduate under the name Sobergeld. I wanted to graduate under the name Wolfgang. And there was a reason for that, because my stepfather, whom my mother had married, had raised all 4 of us through school and done such a wonderful job of raising us, and he had never gotten any credit for it at all. And I felt this was the time to honor my stepfather. So we as a group, all 4 of us, went to court and got and adopted my stepfather. So now Jerry formally had his name changed legally to Gerald I. Wolfgang. And Jerry really tried very hard in school to match the 3 of us, which had gone through school doing very, very well. And my stepfather always used to say when the report cards came home or the letters from the university came home as to how well we had done, he always used to say, "Is that the best you could do?" And Jerry tried just as hard as anybody else to do well. And he ended up going, when he graduated high school, going to NAG University for a couple of years in business, and then transferred to Buff State and finished his undergraduate degree there, and met his wife and played on the school soccer team, which my wife, Liba, and I witnessed all the wounds that Jerry got from all of the face-to-face contacts he made in playing soccer. He was really a very aggressive player in soccer. Jerry went on to teach in Niagara Falls, but also went on to be very active in politics. And he joined the Young Republicans just like my older brother had done, and got to the state level. And Jerry became an advance man for the governor. And when Rockefeller was governor, he became an advance man where he had really learned from the very best on how to set up meetings and how to organize people, how to run parades, how to run major dinners. And when Rockefeller became vice president, Jerry reached out then and became even more so. He arranged a dinner in New York for the astronauts. He was an advance man for some 20-odd countries that the governor visited, that as vice president visited for the federal government. And he took all of these learning experiences which he had working at the state level back to Niagara County when he became active in local politics more. And here he developed that to each of the hospitals we have, St. Mary's Hospital, Memorial Hospital, to the Kiwanis Club in Lewiston, to Niagara University, to Niagara Community College. And so, and almost every other facet of local government. He got grants for worker training from the federal government. He did so much for local community projects. And even today, he was still working on bringing industry back to Niagara County. And so you're going to see a description from all the people following me, all the different things that Jerry had done for the local community, as well as for individual people. So I will leave it to Lori to switch in the next speaker, but it was a pleasure to be able to at least reminisce my dear brother and all the things that he had done for the community and for us as friends. Thank you. Back to you, Lori.
Thanks, Dad. It was really lovely to hear the history, and I'm going to ask Susan Jarofsky, who's Jerry's niece, to also speak.
Okay, thank you, Lori. I'm here with my younger brother, David, and my sister, Linda, all in 3 different cities and different places. And our mom was Molly Jarofsky and our dad was Wilf Jarofsky. And I want to say that the 3 of us have had a really wonderful bunch of uncles, aunts, and cousins throughout our whole life. And we've just been so kind of gifted with this great extended family, as well as our own parents and each other. And so today I'll talk about our Uncle Jerry, but I want to let it be known that all our uncles and aunts and cousins we're so happy to have you in our lives. Uncle Jerry was the youngest of our Silbergeld Wolfgang uncles, and I'm the oldest of the 3 of us. So I remember meeting Jerry when he was probably about 19 or 20 years old. He was quite young, I think just finishing high school. And so, just like a very enthusiastic teenage guy who loved having nieces and nephews. And we used to visit at our Grandma Rose's and Papa Lou's house in Niagara Falls on Portage Road. And it was just nonstop fun. I remember we'd get up in the morning and we'd run into our uncle's rooms and jump on the beds and watch TV, watch cartoons, and they'd all had TVs around. And they would tease us and read to us and do music with us and just all, everything that could be, we just felt very, very loved and welcomed. And Jerry was Jerry was very sporty, and I remember him as particularly loving basketball. And when I remember Linda and I visited Niagara Falls and visited all our uncles and aunts. And when we visited with Jerry, as young teenagers, we went to a great Italian restaurant, and then we went to a basketball game, and that was very much an Uncle Jerry experience. I want to talk about Jerry as an educator because both Uncle Jerry and my mom, Molly, were school teachers, were elementary school teachers. And it's because of their example that I eventually became a teacher, because I just saw how wonderful it could be to teach well and to really love the profession of teaching. So I eventually became a teacher and now a professor of education. And I always think back to their examples. So when I was in elementary school, every time there was a professional day in our school in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, my mom would drive me down to Niagara Falls and I would sit in on Jerry's classes. So I might have been like 6, 7, 8 years old, and I was in his grade 5, 6 class. The kids were a few years older than me. And it was so exciting. I mean, he was just a masterful teacher, full of energy and curiosity. And it was a different atmosphere than our school in Hamilton. It was very inquiring and open to sort of current events and current issues. And I remember, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, which I didn't really know, and singing the national anthem in, this like a very kind of exotic American style for us Canadians to be hearing. And one of the things that we really remember from Jerry's class is that he would get scholastic books for his classes. Many teachers did. And when your kids and the teachers ordered these books, after like maybe for every 10 books you ordered, you get 1 or 2 freebies, these little paperback books. And so Jerry would save some of these for us. And when he would come to visit us in Hamilton, he would bring great big cardboard boxes full of these fantastic books. I still have some of the ones he gave me. Like there was one called Nellie Bly, Reporter. I remember it was really a fantastic book, and just lots and lots of very interesting fiction and nonfiction books. And he'd also bring another box full of special American candy, which we couldn't get in Canada. So I remember those little candy buttons that were stuck to the paper, you know, you have to sort of peel them off. And Bonamo Turkish taffy that we used to see on the American cartoons from Buffalo every Saturday morning. And so it was whenever we saw Jerry, I mean, our other uncles and aunts and our grandparents would bring clothes and music and all kinds of other things. But Jerry, it was always books and candies, two things that we just couldn't get enough of. So it was a lot of fun to whenever Jerry came to visit. And so that's what I remember as a child growing up with young Uncle Jerry. And as you know, throughout his career, I think he always brought that kind of confidence and energy to all the work that he did. And I'd also say that both, well, our mom and dad and our uncles and aunts are all very good at organizing events and gatherings of people, whether they were family events like weddings, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, Passover seders, or other kinds of events, and also more public events. So, and I think that Linda, David, and I have all inherited that ability to, like, from their examples, to stage events where we bring together all kinds of people on a very happy occasion. So that's where I'll end off, and just to thank Uncle Jerry for all that he's done and all his loving care for us as his relatives. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Sue. So I'm going to ask Walter to speak. I'm going to ask him actually to unmute, since hopefully he can find the unmute. And he's a friend of Jerry's.
You can all hear me now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about Jerry. As I was reflecting on my experiences of the past 35 plus years with Jerry, and we were dear friends, I wanted to mention that we are here to praise the wonders of the life of Jerry Wolfgang and the impact that he's had upon us as individuals, as well as members of specific groups and organizations, both locally, nationally, and internationally. As I mentioned, Jerry was a good friend of mine. We didn't necessarily agree on a number of things, especially politics and economics and so on, but we both certainly agreed with the Thomas Jefferson quote, who once said, "I never let religion or politics get between me and my friends or my family." And we didn't. Jerry also liked, and I'll mention Peter Litchka a little later, but Peter was a basketball player, high school basketball player, when Jerry coached at LaSalle High School with none other than the famed Matt Mazza. And Peter liked Peter and I used the quote, "illegitimi non carborundum," in a number of publications. And basically we like that because we're from Niagara Falls like Jerry, and that's why Jerry also liked it. And that's Latin for don't let the, and I'll clean it up, illegitimate ones or the unknowledgeable ones grind you down. Don't let them grind you down. Keep moving in a direction that you think is right. And that was Jerry all the way. Jerry also subscribed to, and I'd like to mention that, that old concept, there are three kinds of people in this world. One, people who make things happen. Two, people who watch things happen. And three, people who say, what happened? You know, when did they do this? And Jerry, of course, was in that first category. As a matter of fact, he was at the vanguard of making things happen, not only in our local community and region, but also statewide, nationally, and internationally, which I'll mention in a few minutes. Another piece, when I think of Jerry, I often reflect on the 19th century British philosopher and statesman John Ruskin, who once said, "Quality is never an accident. It's never an accident. It's always the result of intelligent effort and the will to produce a superior outcome." And that was Jerry Wolfgang. He always put forth an intelligent effort, and he always had the will to produce a superior product. And as I mentioned, I have known him for 35 years. 1988, when I came back to Lewiston, and during the Lewiston Kiwanis, I became very impressed with Jerry as he ran the Peach Festival and the Peach Festival parades. And I loved serving as one of his marshals. I didn't know what a parade marshal did, but Jerry certainly told me what a parade marshal was expected to do. And if you have ever been to the parade and line up at Lewiston, it was a well-organized effort. And Jerry was not just the director, he was the commander of the parade. He organized it, but he also had the tactical organizations for it. And I often thought even General Patton would have probably shivered in his timbers if he got out of Jerry's line, if he didn't do what Jerry expected him to do. He was very commanding, but those parades were beautiful. 100+ units, all marching spread out in a well-organized fashion. It was the hit of Niagara County. So much so that we even dubbed ourselves the parade marshals under Jerry's command as the Parades Are Us group, and went to other communities, Niagara Falls, Festival of Lights, and so on, to organize their parades. And it was a fun experience in terms of watching Jerry's directiveness, but in a very understanding manner. I also had the opportunity to golf with Jerry throughout a number of summers with our dear friends Warren Kahn and Arnold Zimmer. And golfing with Jerry was always a trip and 3/4, because Jerry always thought the next putt for him was like the last putt at the 18th green at the Masters. He would take his time. He would be very deliberate. Again, for him, even in golf, quality was never an accident. He was always focused. We also traveled together and presented, and we did some collaborative research. We've been in places, we traveled to China with Father Denning, one of the priests from Niagara who organized their PhD program, presented in Shanghai, Beijing, Wuhan. We were in Cyprus, Greece, Kenya. In Kenya, they lost our bags, of course. So it took us a couple days to recover. Jerry fit in much nicer than I did into the clothes that we were given to use for our presentation. But anyhow, it was a good experience. We traveled together to Poland and visited Auschwitz. It was my second time there, his first. Very moving experience, of course. And we hardly spoke on the train ride back to Warsaw, but did reflect on the inhumanity of man and how we need to be sure in our educational systems that we never let that happen again. Jerry was very involved. We traveled to South Africa, Turkey. He was focused on presenting the best aspects of our futures research. And I would encourage all of you to think of Jerry and go to YouTube and bring up the Did You Know series. And you can bring up Did You Know 2022, 23, 21. He would always love to use that as the start of presentations that we would do around the world. First 5 minutes is dynamic, and he used that to illustrate the changes in life in our world, but how it has to be done from a human side of change. Jerry was a member of the International Board of, the Board of the International Society for Educational Planners. He was on the chair of that board. He held, co-chaired the conference we had in Toronto in 2017, excellent conference. In 2013 and 2013 and 14, he was the events coordinator, of course, of the Niagara Falls conferences that we had. He loved to show off and shine a light on his hometown. He would love to show the positives of the city of his birth, as was mentioned earlier by his family. And he loved to show it off to people from around the country and around the world. I see Jennifer Wallace is here, who has experienced some of that issue. She was on the board at Association of Teacher Educators. Jerry also was a producer and host of a TV cable program, Target Success. in which he again highlighted many individuals and organizations who had an impact on our community. But from my perspective, and often overlooked, he was a global researcher. And he was a local adjunct professor at Niagara University who reflected the mission of our program, PhD program, which basically was Tutum Opus Nostrum in Operation Consisted, which basically means from scholarly research to compassionate action. And Jerry, as was previously mentioned by his niece, loved to put the concepts, the broader global picture into action in terms of the work that he did with his students at Niagara. He loved working with the basketball athletes and others, and found ways to integrate their program of studies on event planning with things that were going on in the community, like the Porter Cup. He truly embraced that John Naisbitt concept that was used at the end of the 20th century and the dawn of the 21st century, and Naisbitt said, real leadership is finding the right parade and jumping in front of it. Well, friends, Jerry didn't find the right parades. He organized them, and he gave them direction, and he gave all of us direction. He organized them and implemented them with precision. Just want to do a couple of quick reads. I know there are other folks here, but for instance, Peter Lichka, who was a former basketball player of his at LaSalle and New York's superintendent and professor at Loyola University in Maryland, said, so sorry to hear about Jerry. He did a lot for the Niagara area. He left so many with such fond memories and the experiences. He coached in a unique fashion, but we never forgot what we needed to do. And I can recall that as a parade marshal. Another person just recently said, and she's Freddie Boyles from the University of Arkansas, it's hard to believe Jerry won't be joining us at our annual conference in a few weeks in Jacksonville, Florida. He was a fixture in our organization and a fixer at so many of our gatherings. He had the moxie to get things done. He had a wry sense of humor and a quiet demeanor of humility and charm. Another individual who's close to us, Shirley Lefevre, who is the executive president and provost at Wichita State University in Kansas, said Jerry was a treasured friend and a unique inspiration who provided insightful reflections on how to get things done at all levels. And another colleague of ours, Abasawi Tekle from Ethiopia, who teaches now at George Washington University, identified that Jerry's life history was a multifaceted contribution to local and international community at every level. His contributions to the International Society for Educational Planning were significant, and he will truly be missed. And he will. I could go on with other folks who have expressed their fondness for Jerry, their enjoyability of being with him, and enjoying his insightful comments, again, regarding a wide variety of topics. Certainly, I will miss him. Jerry, it was a wonderful life you had, my friend. Rest in peace. Thank you, Lori. And thank you, Larry.
Oh, thank you, Walter. That was lovely. I'm going to ask my cousin David Jarofsky to also say a couple words, and then another friend, George Spiro, will be right on after him.
Thanks, Lori, and that was amazing, Walter. I really enjoyed hearing about that aspect of my uncle. So I'm the other Canadian nephew with Susan and Linda, and my mother, Molly. And I just wanted to, a couple of memories I just wanted to share. I think this is the time. First memory is the great parties that we used to have, the great family parties we used to have in Lewiston with Jerry and Joan and Lynn and all the kids at the house. such great hosts. They put on such great parties, and we used to love to go to their house in Lewiston, and I just have such fond memories of being there. And it was such a warm, amazing atmosphere, that and such a warm home that they had with he and Joan and the kids. Second memory is, and my sister Sue will remember this well, one of the things that he did, I think it was a school project, was they made stuffed animals. And these were sort of cut out patterns that they would fill with bits of foam and sew them up. And I don't call the reason for it, but we had all kinds of these around the house. So one day, and Jerry used to bring them, and one day we had a little dog named Duchess. And one day we went out with my mother, and I'm pretty sure, I think I got in trouble, but it's really Jerry's fault. So I want to make sure that he takes the blame for this. I must have been told to leave the dog in the back hall or something, but I didn't. And God bless her, Duchess ripped open every one of these stuffed animals. The house was covered in foam. It took hours. And my mother was so upset, and it was directed at me. So it must have been something I did, but really I blame Jerry. So I just wanted to remember the house was completely covered in these little foam pellets from these stuffed toys. And lastly, in later years, I happen to be in Naples, Florida right now. We used to come down here for March break, for the Canadian school break. And I would come with my kids, my mother, Molly, my sister, Linda would very often be with us as well. And Jerry would be there with Joseph and Lynn and Madeline and Allison. And many, many years we would spend together and hang out here in Naples, go out for dinners, enjoy each other's company. And we really got close during those years, and it was so much fun. It was some pretty special memories, the dinners at Carrabba's and all these different silly things that we would do, but we had so much fun. So I just wanted to reminisce about some of those great experiences. That was more recent in later years. We did that together. So that's it. And I'm gonna miss you, Jerry. Rest in peace.
Thanks, David. So George Spear is a friend and would like to also say a few words.
Well, thanks, Lori. You're kind of like the Steven Spielberg of the Wolfgang family organizing this. I thought we were just going to say a few words without getting on television, but Larry and Liebe asked Joan and I if we'd say a word or two, and I said, well, it's kind of hard just to say a word or two about Jerry Wolfgang. Walt Polka covered it so well, and quite frankly, I learned a lot from what Walt said and what Larry said earlier regarding the early years of Jerry. And I'm kind of like a fly on the wall. The only thing I know really is I watched Jerry for the past 50 years do all the things that he does around Niagara County. And even getting down closer to the truth, I watched Jerry in action at the Niagara Falls Country Club the last 45 years, where in all the things that Walt Polka said that Jerry was doing, I don't know where he found the time to do all the things that he was accomplishing at the Niagara Falls Country Club. The very prestigious Porter Cup, which brings amateurs from all over the country to our country club 1 week a year, is really about a 10 or a 15 week program. And Jerry was not only the chairman of the Porter Cup and on the Porter Cup committee for the past 40 or 50 years, but he was very active in making sure that the thing was organized, Walter, because Jerry ran the marshals at the Porter Cup, not to be unexpected, right? And he did a very good job making sure that we were all in our spots when we were supposed to be, and we used our paddles like we were supposed to, and we made sure nobody stood on the green. And so, Jerry, you were there. No question about it. And Jerry, there's three things about Jerry I can remember at the Niagara Falls Country Club. He loved golf, as Walter said earlier. He loved swimming in the pool at the Niagara Falls Country Club. And last but not least, Jerry loved to eat. He was always there having a sandwich or a beer after golf, or he was there on the Friday night fish fry. He thoroughly enjoyed eating at the Niagara Falls Country Club. But more importantly, he was a real leader, and he was a real inspiration to all of us. And Jerry, you might be gone, but you're not forgotten. We loved you. And from what I hear today, we love your whole family. Lori, thank you very much for letting me talk. God bless you all.
That was lovely. Thank you. So I think Dr. Morabito, who's the president of Niagara Community College, is next on the list. If you could say a few
Yes,
words.
I'm here. Good, thank you. I'm giving a few comments on behalf of Niagara County Community College. I've only been at the college 6 years, and I regret that I didn't know Jerry longer. He set such a standard. But I do know that we were at Buffalo State together. I didn't know Jerry. His wife graduated the same time I did. So it took 50 years to meet them, to meet him. At Niagara County Community College, he set the standard for leadership. He was part of our foundation. He was part of our board, as was his wife, Joan. Last year, we were able to have an award for Joan, but we know there was a partnership between Joan and Jerry. Everything that was done, they did together. So that was a statewide award. Jerry made my transition to Niagara Falls much easier. I've gone to many different colleges to be an interim, try to set things in place. And it's very difficult because you have to come in a short period of time, meet people. You have to figure out who's helpful, who's not helpful. And Jerry was certainly on the helpful side. He introduced me to everybody in Western New York. So he made my job much easier. Last year, as an example, we used to go to many banquets together, many galas. The best gala we ever gone to was last summer. We went to St. Mary's. It was in Lewiston, and it was a little bit different. You didn't have like a table seating. So we sat at the bar all night. And then everybody, of course, came to the bar. So we met everybody at the gala because they all came to the bar to get a drink. And he introduced me to every single person I didn't know. So Jerry was a terrific educator, businessman, politician. He talked to me often about his early years with Rockefeller. It was fascinating. He had so many stories, very rich stories in terms of characters. He interviewed me twice on his TV channel. He was a great interviewer. He really understood the subjects that he was dealing with and had searching questions. And speaking about questions, I found out in my working with him, he never asked a question he didn't know the answer to. When he was on our board, he always knew the answer, but he asked the question, so he wanted to know if I knew the answer, and he wanted to share that answer with everybody on the board. So Jerry was a unique person. So, developing a friendship with someone is difficult. First, you start out respecting a person, which I did respect Jerry for all the things he did. It grew into a friendship. We enjoyed each other's company. We understood each other. He supported me in my job, so I will always remember him for that. So in closing, I see Jerry, he's the visible patriarch of community service in Western New York. I don't think you'll ever be matched. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you so much. That was really lovely. And I'm going to invite Dr. Tim Ireland, who's the provost for Niagara University, to also say a few words.
Thanks, Laura. You can hear me okay? Yep. So I got to tell you, I'm completely honored to be a part of this conversation and this memorial service for Jerry this afternoon. So as I was introduced, I'm the academic VP. I've known Jerry for about 20 years. So I moved back into the community in 1996, and I became chair of criminal justice in 2002. And my relationship with Jerry started about then, as he demanded that I appear on his television show. And so I acquiesced. And after that first interaction, we became friends and colleagues over the last 20 years. Look, I feel badly that it's me speaking on Niagara's behalf and not Jim Meyer, the president. Jerry will understand though. Father Meyer's down in Atlantic City, finishing off the MAC basketball tournament. He's on his way home this afternoon. And given Jerry's commitment to not only the concept of Purple Eagles basketball, but his incredible commitment to the student athletes, right, that he has known over time, those coached by Jack Armstrong, Joe Mihalik, Chris Casey, and Greg Paulus now. I'm sure Jerry's going to give Father Meyer a pass on missing this event. So after that appearance on Jerry's show back in the day, I had a couple more opportunities to appear on his show, mostly about Niagara Pioneer soccer. So I got heavily involved in Niagara Pioneer soccer back when my kids were younger. And man, was he a hardcore proponent of that soccer league in Niagara County. He taught for us here at the university for a number of years. So he was an adjunct professor in the College of Hospitality, Sport, and Tourism Management. He started in 2004 and taught regularly for us up and through December of 2020. So I did the math. And if that's one course a semester, that's 2 courses a year, that's somewhere in the range of 30, 35 courses that he taught at Niagara. If you say about 25 students per course, Jerry, over the course of time, in some way, shape, or form, touched the lives of somewhere between 800 and 1,200 students at Niagara. That's an awesome commitment, right, to a university as a part-time faculty member. And that he was able to do what he did for so long and do it so well and touch the lives of so many young people. Totally impressed with that commitment from Jerry. So you guys remember COVID. So a lot of higher ed struggled with COVID. And so we had a lot of debates about how the university would manage COVID. And we ultimately decided that we would open in the fall of 20 and we would teach face-to-face to the best of our ability, right? And so this is my lasting memory of Jerry. I'm walking through Glen Hall in September of 20, right? And I hear this booming voice in a classroom. And I'm gonna poke my head in to say hello to the students and the faculty member and to thank them for doing this in person. And who's in there but Jerry, holding court with about 25 kids, right? Totally captured by the conversation he's sharing with them. And this was my takeaway, right? Is that he showed up, man. He met his obligation. He valued education and the interaction with young students. It was so important to him to meet this obligation to teach that he put that before almost everything else in his life. I'll miss seeing Jerry around the village of Lewiston. I'll miss seeing him at end-trip functions, Bill, and at basketball games in Gallagher. And Lori, I am incredibly thankful that he shared his time and his talent with so many of our students at Niagara.
That was just beautiful. Thank you. So, I wanted to just ask my brother to say a few words as well, and his nephew of Jerry Wolfgang.
Hi. For those who don't know, I'm Rob Wolfgang, Lori's brother, Jerry's nephew, Larry's and Liba's son, and a lot of my cousins here that I haven't seen in a while. Miss you guys. Some of my kids are also on. So, really nice to say a few words, and I learned a few stories today. It was meaningful, and thank you everyone for sharing. So my memories of Uncle Jerry are similar. As a growing up with the Wolfgangs and the uncles and the aunts, it was a busy house, and especially during Thanksgiving and Passover and different holidays. And Jerry would always be there, and Jerry had a big personality and was always like a big kid himself. He always really wanted to play with us and do stuff with us, and when we especially when we had kids later on, he would bring toys. He was a big giver, very generous, not only in his time but also wanting to make others feel good, I think. And so I know I'm kind of skipping around, but he would always bring these remote control cars for our kids every time we would come to Niagara Falls, and he would come and visit, or he'd have a bag with him and start pulling out all these remote control cars, and my kids would absolutely go nuts over these cars. And pretty soon we had like 15 remote control cars in our basement in our house, because Jerry just kept bringing them to the kids for every get together. So that was, and I know the kids really look forward to it. But when I was a kid, I remember him being very sporty, as I think Susan said, and he, Sue was bringing this, his competitiveness and his sportiness out. He really instilled in me the love of basketball. He encouraged me. I always liked basketball, but I was, small, not that great, when I was a kid. And he would invite me to, maybe I was like 14 or 15. He invited me to play, old man basketball, where it was probably, for me, it seemed like everyone was very old, but probably like 30. He was probably 30 years old, and a group of guys would play at the Y, or at a gym, an indoor gym. And he invited me to play with these large, sweaty old men that I was very I was very impressed that he would let me do that with him. And it was just a really good bonding thing that he and I did, and I did that several times with him. And then Niagara had a basketball camp in the summer, and Jerry really encouraged me. He said, you should go. You should go to the camp. You really need to go to the camp. It's a great camp. There's a lot of good coaching, and you really should. And so I did, and I did for a couple years, actually. And I don't really know Jerry's involvement, but I know that at the banquet dinner at the end of the week, there would be Jerry, and it's like, how'd the week go? How did everything go? And he'd be checking in on me, and I really enjoyed that, especially because the Bills used to have summer camp at Niagara University while we were having the basketball camp, and stayed in the same dorm as us. So as a big Bills fan growing up, and being able to stay in the same building as the Bills was super exciting. And so I have a lot of fond memories of that. And over the years, as I got older, Jerry and I still shared the love of basketball. And I didn't really understand his commitment to teaching till I became much older. But you know, the basketball talk then led to the players on Niagara, and I mean, even just this year, he knew all the players. He knows the coach. He would teach them in his class. He would be huge advocates for these young student athletes, and really, you know, would just embrace their making something of their lives other than just basketball. Basketball was a vehicle to get into college, to get a degree, and then to make something of themselves. And he really, you know, really was an advocate for all those students, and he would relate that to me, and it was, you know, something I'm going to miss hearing about that. And even our last encounter with last time we got to see Uncle Jerry, we all went to a Niagara game, of course, and then typical of Jerry, he pulls out a bag and starts giving, you know, my kids are in their 20s and my oldest is 30. He's like, here's candy for all the kids, you know. He's giving out candy for all the boys and Isa, and it was you know, typical Jerry, you know, doing that. So I'm gonna miss him. I think we all are. So thank you, Lori.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody coming today on a Sunday to do this. And we didn't make this very religious, but there's something in Judaism called Tikkun Olam, and it means repair of the world. And in the Jewish faith, we tend to live for today, to make the world here a better place. And I think our world is infinitely better because of Jerry's endless energy and all his contributions. So, you know, and one of the Jewish prayers says, as long as we live, they too will live, for they are now part of us and we remember them. So that was really what today was about, just to remember and share those memories, and just appreciate everybody taking the time and coming out and sharing their thoughts. So appreciate everybody, and thank you.